It's getting clearer and clearer that the Pittsburgh Steelers will have to address the wide receiver position sooner or later in this offseason, whether it's in the NFL draft or in free agency. But the position has to be addressed, especially now that we know that JuJu Smith-Schuster is definitely headed to the Kansas City Chiefs and James Washington is definitely headed to the Dallas Cowboys. Those two moves, while not total surprises, confirm that the Steelers do need to address wide receiver. But I think there's a smart way to do it without compromising the rest of the Steelers' plans for this offseason. What do I mean? I'll explain that on today's episode of the Locked On Steelers podcast, as well as talk about what this Cleveland Browns did in adding Deshaun Watson, how that relates to their current plans, and why I don't think it really deviates from what the Steelers are doing now. And also, we'll have our mock draft Monday winner. It's another exciting episode of the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit the like button on this video. If you want to subscribe for more of our daily content, hit the subscribe button to our YouTube channel to get all of our content. Sometimes we also post bonus episodes to our YouTube channel. You can also find us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey. And when you go to Apple, leave us a 5-star review with a positive comment, and you will get a special shout out at the end of the show. We thank you for making the Locked On Steelers podcast your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline, of course, has you covered all season long with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. And especially with March Madness well underway, BetOnline is where the game starts. Now, let's get to the big news of the weekend. Outside of Deshaun Watson, we will get to that in the second segment. But the first news for the Steelers, we now know that both JuJu Smith-Schuster and James Washington are gone. Now, James Washington was a foregone conclusion. There were rumors that he was going to get traded during the preseason and maybe during the season. That didn't happen, of course, because the Steelers wanted to maintain their depth at wide receiver should injuries happen, and they did happen. But they held on to him, but it was kind of given. James Washington, he never really got his chance to shine when he was a rookie in 2018. The team had JuJu Smith-Schuster and Antonio Brown, and Ben Roethlisberger wasn't even really looking at James Washington. 2019 was when he really came on, but then Ben Roethlisberger was hurt. 2020 wasn't exactly 2020, and then you had 2020 and 2021, which weren't exactly Ben's best years either. So now he heads to the Dallas Cowboys to work with Dak Prescott and be a backup receiver to CeeDee Lamb. So he'll be a secondary option with him and Michael Gallup. That should be an interesting thing over there. But of course, Steeler Nation's more concerned with JuJu Smith-Schuster, considering how much he had grabbed the attention of Steelers fans over the past 5 years of being on the team. From being the youngest player to ever get 2,000 receiving yards in NFL history, to knocking out Vontaze Burfict and making a guy who was a villain, a guy who took out Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell all in the same season and was celebrating their injuries in doing so. He was a guy that ended all of that from Vontaze Burfict with a single block on a I think it's a Sunday night football game in Cincinnati. And on top of all of that, he became one that was immersed in the community, a person who truly identified with Pittsburgh over the years, became a fan favorite. Was also known for, of course, being the TikToks, doing TikToks and dancing, and people didn't like that. Some people didn't like that. Some people didn't care. But either way, there was no doubt that he gave everything he had for Pittsburgh. And I think on top of all of that, in his last season when he was already paid and he didn't have to really do anything, and he tore his shoulder, and he was out for most of the season, and people thought that was the last Steelers game you'd ever see him in. This man worked his way back and actually played in the Steelers playoff game for Ben Roethlisberger's last game in the NFL. That guy's tough. But all that aside, the Steelers need to make moves now. Both these guys are gone, and however you feel about JuJu Smith-Schuster, his contract does seem like the Steelers could have afforded it, even though it says $10.75 million. Most of that is in incentives, which means that they would only be paid if the Chiefs do X, Y, and Z this year, which means he was really only getting paid about 3.25 of the salary cap. But the Steelers clearly wanted to move on. The Steelers clearly wanted to find other answers here. Now, here's my thinking behind this, is that the Steelers know they need to address the wide receiver position somehow. They have two guys on the team in Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson, who do have experience, who have been on the roster for now Chase Claypool 2 years and Deontay Johnson 3. And these are guys who, are good athletes and have shown promise, but have also, of course, shown their own struggles. Now, there's several things that could happen with this moving forward. The Steelers could go get a free agent to kind of come in and be the veteran leader of the room. There's guys out there like that. Funny enough, one of those guys right now is Emmanuel Sanders. I'm not saying it's going to be him, but it would be a wild story for him to end up back in Pittsburgh after all the things that happened. I don't think that's going to happen. But there's a lot of guys that are floating out there, that the Steelers could take a look at and say, hey, this guy, let's bring in a veteran receiver. But a lot of the bigger names are pretty much signed. They could go get a Keelan Cole. They could get a, T.Y. Hilton still floating out there. But I truly think the bottom line here is the Steelers don't want to invest too high at the wide receiver position in free agency, because they know this is such a strong draft class for wide receiver. And this isn't a draft class that you even need to draft one in the first round. Sure, they could. They absolutely could. And this is a draft class that has several guys that could go in the first round. Jamison Williams, even with his injury, is one. Drake London out of USC is another. Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, the Ohio State wide receivers, either one of them or both of them could end up being first round picks. Traylon Burks is a guy that kind of floats between first and second round. I've seen a lot of people think different things about him. Jahan Dotson's another one. So, I mean, literally, I just named, 6 receivers for you that could go in the first round. That's how crazy it is. And then after that, there's still a lot of excitement here. But here's the thing. I truly think, the further you look down this wide receiver class, the more I see that there's guys like Skyy Moore, who, if he's around in the second round, you're taking him. Christian Watson, same deal. George Pickens, same deal. Calvin Austin III, same deal. And then you even start to get to the later rounds, like third and fourth rounds. You start looking at Justin Ross from Clemson. I really love Alec Pierce from Cincinnati. His height, his size, his explosiveness, and his speed all could fit really well. And then, of course, you want speed. There's Tyquan Thornton, who was blazing at the combine. And then you could still even get, one of those guys in the upper rounds or the middle rounds, and then come back down for in the later rounds and get guys like a Bo Melton out of Rutgers. There's guys that you could get, and then you're saying, hey, we're coming in with another young wide receiver room. This isn't a team that's going to be basing itself in the pass anyways. That's what you're going to be focusing on, is making sure that you're running the ball, you're protecting the football, you're playing great defense, and that's how you're winning games. And sure, you need wide receivers to be able to make plays. You need the occasional shot play to be able to work out. But you also don't need to overspend for that when that's not going to be that's just not going to be your strength this year. So do pay attention to what the Steelers do moving forward as far as their free agent ads. I could see them adding a veteran wide receiver to the room, but I don't see it being some big name or someone that's going to cost them a whole lot of money. I see it being a simple thing that might cost them, a 2-year deal for like $3 million a year or something like that. Just someone to kind of just buy them time so that they can make other moves and get things done. But I truly think the plan is add 2 more rookie receivers this year. And I say 2 because they could go in the upper rounds, middle rounds, and the lower rounds here. And that would give them options so that if Deontay Johnson doesn't look great after this upcoming season, you don't have to pay him. If Chase Claypool doesn't look great after in 2 more seasons, you don't have to pay him. That's what the Steelers have been able to do for so long. It's why they didn't have to pay JuJu Smith-Schuster, because, for years after JuJu Smith-Schuster, they picked a guy in the second or early third round to keep it going. The Steelers haven't had to pay wide receivers big money for quite some time because they've avoided that. Now, of course, that excludes Antonio Brown, but Antonio Brown is the exception to the rule. Why? Because he had the best 6-year run in the history of the NFL. And they knew what they had in him, even if he was completely out of his mind crazy. But this is why I'm talking about JuJu Smith-Schuster, is because I do think that they want talented receivers. They want those guys there, and they want a good receiving core to welcome whatever quarterback they get in 2023. Because, again, I don't think the plan is to get their future franchise quarterback in this offseason. I think the plan is next season. But I think they want to make sure it's like, hey, we're going to shore up the actual strengths of this team. And the strengths of this team right now is not going to be this passing game. Mitch Trubisky might put on a really good year and surprise people, but it's still not going to be the strength of this team. And if it is, either Mitch Trubisky overnight turned into Patrick Mahomes, or the run game really didn't take off and the defense is a huge letdown. And if that's all happening, it's a complete disaster in Pittsburgh. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think what is going to happen is that the Steelers sign a cheap veteran, draft two rookie wide receivers, bring them all to camp, and say, let's get to work and let's see who's who and who's going to be our playmakers and who can establish rapport with Mitchell Trubisky as early as possible. Meanwhile, this team continues to invest in defense because I still see them going after a major strong safety over this next week here, signing someone to be their starter. And if not a major strong safety, then they bring back Terrell Edmunds because they know how solid he can be in his chemistry with Minkah Fitzpatrick. And then safety also flies up your board even more so with some importance there and potentially some flexibility. But all that being said, I think the Steelers have some interesting moves ahead of them that they can address in this draft that don't require them to take a wide receiver in the first round. We'll talk more about that in the second segment because I do think that Deshaun Watson going to the Browns is a statement in a sort of ways. We'll talk about that in just a sec here. But first, I got to talk to you guys about Built Bar. It's that time of the year where you're starting to give up on your New Year's resolutions, but not you. You're sticking to your resolutions because you're going to eat right. You're going to eat Built Bars because they're actually going to taste good. You're going to enjoy eating them, and they're going to be good for you. Have you tried their new Puffs flavors? If you haven't, you're missing out because these are some of the best tasting Built Bars ever. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallows. They're fluffy, marshmallowy, and they're a treat. They're covered in 100% real chocolate, and they come in flavors like cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, and banana cream pie. They're going to be your favorites, but even if these aren't, regular Built Bars are still fantastic, and they're still good for you because they're low in calories but high in protein. You can replace the average candy bar that you have because the average Built Bar comes with 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to the average candy bar that has 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. It's clear what's a better choice for you. And there's so many Built Bar flavors to choose from: double chocolate, coconut almond, peanut butter brownie, raspberry, cookies and cream, salted caramel, minted brownie, you name it, they probably got it. Go to their website, built.com, to get your flavor of Built Bar delivered right to your door. And when you go to built.com, be sure to use the promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED 15, LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your next order of Built Bars at built.com. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, continuing our show here. I want to remind you all that with the NHL deadline, or NHL trade deadline coming up, we have a lot of great Locked On NHL shows, especially Hunter Hodes with the Locked On Penguins. So go give him a follow if you want to see. If you're a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, you're also a Steelers fan, and you want to root on your Penguins, and you're hoping they make a move. Deadline's at 3 p.m. Eastern on Monday, and Hunter will be all over it for Locked On Penguins. So go check out the great stuff that he's doing. And if you're just a fan of any team in the NHL, go check out your favorite team. We've got it on the Locked On Podcast Network. But back to what we're talking about here, and that's again addressing the defense. Now, there's been no movement, no extra news that we've heard about the potential of the Steelers signing Tyrann Mathieu, Landon Collins, Terrell Edmunds, any of the number of safeties who are available in free agency right now at the time of me recording this. So, and that was the whole point of Friday's episode, is that I really think that they've geared themselves up for. They didn't overpay at cornerback. They didn't overpay on the offensive line. They've kept everything reasonable. They've allowed them now this chance to say, hey, you know what? We're actually going to spend. We're actually going to go get that star player that puts us over the top and make a play. And that's just why I felt Myles Jack was coming, because I felt that was something that would be sensible. I thought they could get him to a reasonable deal, and I thought that the Jaguars would want to get rid of him. And all those things worked out for there. I've just been saying for a while, I think it could happen. Now, according to overthecap.com, at this point in time, the Steelers have approximately $21 million in cap space. That's still more than enough to sign a Tyrann Mathieu to a 2 to 3 year deal. He's in his late 20s, so he's in his prime. You can go get that guy, have him around for a few years, and you can still go get a safety in the NFL draft. You can still go get a safety, for cheaper in free agency to back him up. But I think that right now, you need a star safety out there. You need to get an X factor player on your defense. And I think Myles Jack could be one of those guys, but you still have the money to go get it. I think that you could afford to go get it this year while moving forward. So obviously the Steelers need to do that, because this is going to be a major quarterback season in the AFC particular, and especially in the AFC North. And that, of course, got even crazier with Deshaun Watson joining the Cleveland Browns. And it's crazy because Deshaun Watson said he didn't want to join him. He was, I was, his camp said they are out of the run and we are not paying attention to them anymore. But I truly think what happened was when you looked, when the Browns looked at their situation and they said, wait a second, we're out on Deshaun. Baker wants to leave. We're going to be stuck in a really weird place. We got to come up with something. We got to make something happen. And I think what happened was they said, hey, let's just up the amount of money that we're willing to give Deshaun Watson, because that's why Deshaun Watson turned him down the first time. And he said, hey, you know what? Here's not just $250 million in your contract. Here's $230 million of it guaranteed. And I think Deshaun Watson's like, I'll take that. And we'll be competitive, we'll be competitive coming out the gate. And that's what happened there. And I know on Friday's episode, I was coming at the Browns hard, and I still kind of feel like, they really botched the whole situation with Baker Mayfield, and that they salvaged it by going and getting Deshaun Watson. But this contract is heavy, and there's still a question of whether Deshaun Watson will even play for the first month or two of the season. I'm fully expecting him to be back at some point. And I want to take this time to address this situation between Steelers fans and Browns fans, because Twitter is normally a cesspool, always is a cesspool, actually. But I get where people are coming from on certain things, but I think there's better ways to handle the debates between Steelers fans and Browns fans about Ben Roethlisberger and Deshaun Watson than what's currently happening on Twitter. And I'm not here to come on my high horse here. All I'm saying is, for Steelers fans who are trying to call out Browns fans and say you're hypocrites for saying, oh, you came at Ben Roethlisberger for years for his allegations, but you didn't come at but you're here cheering on Deshaun Watson. I think that if someone is doing that to you, if someone is a person that personally in your life, not just any old Browns fan, but a person in your life, was pointing in your face and saying you as a Steelers fan need to never wear Steelers gear again because of Ben Roethlisberger, and now is saying, oh, it's great that Deshaun Watson's there. Okay, that is your one example of this, but that's not what's happening all throughout football. In fact, there's many Browns fans that are disgusted about the signing of Deshaun Watson because he still has 22 open allegations in civil lawsuits regarding sexual abuse and sexual assault. Just like there are also many Steelers fans who weren't comfortable with Ben Roethlisberger's situation, even though we're 13 years removed from it, 10, however long it's been since the last accusation that he had. But there's a mature way to handle that conversation, and it's to not try to use the idea that women were being exploited by an athlete as your political football to feel better about getting one up on another group of fans. So all I'm saying is you can have conversations about if someone is being hypocritical, but don't use it to be like a gotcha moment, because there's people out there that are actually getting hurt by sexual abuse and sexual, harassment and the allegation, and those allegations are real and they're out there and they're being dealt with. But the best way to handle it isn't trying to use it so you can feel good about your football team over another football team. But I get that there was a mass panic by Steelers fans when this happened. Not on the moral side of it, but on the football talent side of it. This is like, crap, that was the guy. That was the top 5 quarterback that you were hoping would go to somewhere else in the NFC South, where you only had to play him once every 4 years and you didn't have to worry about him. And now he's in your backyard. And that is something to grapple with. And that's why I'm here to talk about the football aspect of this now, because this is now, you definitely have the worst quarterback in the division in Mitchell Trubisky if he's your starter. And before, it was like Mitchell Trubisky and Baker Mayfield could have duked it out. I've never been big on Baker Mayfield, but I've also never been big on Mitch Trubisky. So I was like, I can see them duking it out. We'll figure that out this season. But Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and now Deshaun Watson, that's going to be a problem. But I don't think it's going to be this insurmountable problem that people are making it out to be. I've seen people say, oh, for the next decade, the Steelers just aren't going to compete. They just can't stand up to these guys. Are we crazy? Are we nuts here? Have we not seen how the NFL has gone for the past several years, past 2 decades? Yes, it's important to have franchise quarterbacks, but it's not impossible to beat the quarterbacks, the teams that do have franchise quarterbacks. Again, look at how the San Francisco 49ers have continuously owned Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Look at how Tom Brady has lost 3 Super Bowls to quarterbacks he should not have lost to. I'm not saying that the Steelers could easily just overcome these things. What I am saying is these aren't death sentences to the Steelers. Now, does this mean they need to be even that much better on defense? Absolutely, which is also why I've been advocating on this very show for months that needs to be the focus of this team in the first step of the post Ben Roethlisberger era. Is that if you want to be, if you want to build the core, build the nucleus, build the foundation to become a championship football team again, to get the 7th Super Bowl to Pittsburgh before anywhere else, then you got to build a great defense again. And not a good defense, not a very good defense, a great defense. That's why I've continued to say that the plan has to involve getting a star player in the secondary. For a while, I was thinking like, okay, maybe it can be cornerback if certain things work the right way. I think Carlton Davis might have been in play had Tom Brady not come back to the NFL. Once again, he does things to annoy Steelers, but that's fine. But so you missed that boat on getting a top cornerback, so you can go get a top safety. That's an option. That's why I've been advocating that. But even if you don't get the top safety right here, there's still plenty of things that you can do to make yourself an even better defense in 2022 and beyond. And that's why I'm going to reveal to you my first mock draft that I've done on this show for all of you to see. Now, looking at my mock draft here, I can show you that I did trade back. I did trade back to with the Bengals. Crazy enough. Actually, I think it was with the Eagles because the Eagles traded with the Bengals. It was a long story. Point was, I got 2 second-round picks, and I was using that to address the Steelers' needs. And you can see I went with not Jordan Davis, but with Devante Wyatt at the back end of the first round with the 31st overall pick. Devante Wyatt isn't as big as Jordan Davis, but he's still extremely athletic, extremely disruptive, has violent hands, and can, if he works in the NFL, he'll develop an even better pass rush, especially if he's working with Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt in the coming years. So I really like the idea of being able to add that guy because, as I've said before, both Tuitt and Hayward are on the back ends of their career. Hayward probably has about 3 more years in him, I'd say. Tuitt, we still need to see if he's going to come back, period. But even if he does, he's not too far behind Hayward in that he's in his prime, but he's going to not be in his prime for a whole lot much longer. So you need to start finding the future of your defensive line now, and Devante Wyatt would be a heck of a get at 31. Then with my first pick that I traded back for, my second round pick that I traded back and got at 48 overall, I went and got Jahan Dotson, wide receiver out of Penn State. Again, I just really think day 2 is a really good spot to draft wide receivers this year. You don't need to go out and get Drake London or Jameson Williams or Chris Olave in the first day when all these guys are still available. And there's still Skyy Moore, there's still Christian Watson, there's still lots of these guys who you bring them on the team, they could legitimately become wide receiver 1 very soon. And Jahan Dotson's right in that mix. But you do want a playmaker at wide receiver. That's why I do think day 2, you'd still have plenty of options to go get them. And then with my second pick in the second round, with the Steelers' actual 52nd overall pick that they earned, I got cornerback Roger Mccreary of Auburn. And as I've said, the Steelers need to address the cornerback position as well. Even though they went and got Levi Wallace and brought back Akella Witherspoon and still have Cam Sutton, they need to be drafting for the future. And if Mccreary, who he looks like he could be a star cornerback, this could be a guy that comes in and says, hey, you don't have to jump in and learn everything right away, but they're going to expect some expectations of you. They're going to have some things for you to come in and learn. And maybe you take Levi Wallace's spot. Maybe you come in and you become the second cornerback and eventually elevate yourself to CB1 for the team. But I think it's important to take a shot when you get a good shot at a cornerback this year. And we'll address that with the Mock Draft Monday winner as well, because I do think that you're going to be interested in some of those picks. And then down the line, I went and addressed other positions of need. Nicholas Petit-Frere of Ohio State, an athletic offensive tackle. I like the way he moves. I want to see how this would fit in. And again, this would be the 3rd round pick. So this would be a guy that, hey, you come in, he's going to add to your tackle depth. And at best, he makes someone step back. Maybe Dan Moore Jr. loses his spot. Maybe he pushes and becomes the swing tackle. Maybe he just makes someone that much better. But I do think addressing the tackle position couldn't hurt at that point in the draft. Then with my later picks that I traded down, because again, with me trading back, I also had to give up on the 4th-round compensatory pick. But with my 6th-round pick at 208, I got Bo Melton, wide receiver out of Rutgers. Really liked Bo Melton in the Senior Bowl. Seemed like a returner type of guy, and could help. It could help in that aspect, as well as being a good, quick, shifty receiver. So that's good thing there too. Got linebacker Kanaya Mauga out of USC with my first 7th-round pick, and with my final 7th-round pick, I got Connor Hayward. Yes, Cam Hayward's little brother from Michigan State, who played basically H-back / tight end / everything they asked of him. And the reason I drafted him is because Brooke Pryor of ESPN forgot to draft him last week. And I told her, I'm telling Cam Hayward when I get the chance so that he knows that she didn't draft his younger brother. Ha! Take that, Brooke. Anyways, I want to get to our mock draft Monday winner, because I want to further talk about what I did with this draft and what I think a lot of people are looking at, what they could do with the draft and what the Steelers will do with their draft, because they do want to build up an elite defense again. So we'll talk about that in a minute, in a minute here. But first, I got to talk to you guys about betonline.net. March Madness is well underway and the second round has just ended. So if you're looking to put money down, go to betonline.net to put money down on who you think is going to advance through the Sweet 16 and beyond. They have betonline.net has all the latest odds, contests, and player props. BetOnline.net has the #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. It also remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information needs, including live betting, and you can play your favorite Vegas casino games there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn about the trends and the action at BetOnline, where the game starts. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, wrapping up a Monday episode here. Now, again, with that draft that I put together, the whole idea was strengthen the defensive line, strengthen the cornerback, excuse me, get your wide receiver pick in, and you were able to hit a lot of those bases and reinforce things there as well. So I truly think that's also with, again, getting a strong safety to solidify that spot down, because you do need a starter. You don't have one on the roster as of Monday morning, March 21st. So that's going to be important. But I also think the Steelers don't need to overpick any specific position. The Steelers need to go best player available, and that's again what has Kevin Colbert has afforded the Steelers by the way that he's operated in free agency. He's done a very good job signing guys left and right who were on team-friendly contracts. Mitch Trubisky, who was rumored to cost $15 million, cost around $7 million a year when they got him. You got James Daniels assigned to the offensive line, team-friendly contract. Chukwu Okorafor on a prove-it deal. You got Miles Jack on basically a prove-it deal, but also just a good 2-year deal for the team. Akella Witherspoon on a good deal. Levi Wallace on a good deal. Now all of a sudden you're not looking around and saying, hey, you need 20 positions. Now you probably need like 2 or 3. So all that being said, the Steelers have done those things, and that kind of opens up the floors for us to have more, I guess, holistic talks about this NFL draft class. Because for the first month of us doing these mock draft Monday shows, pretty much all the first round picks were guard, center, guard, center, guard, center. Is it guard? Is it center? Is it tackle? Is it one of these guys? Now you can open it up. So I went with someone different than we've done before, because I also think there's an interesting conversation piece around the player that came up in this person's first round. So congratulations to this week's Mock Draft Monday winner, Seth Rush. Congratulations, Seth. You picked an interesting lineup of players here. You didn't involve any trades, but I liked the way that you did things, because you also shared a pick with me in how you did this, and some other interesting picks as well. Now, if you're not watching on YouTube, you can't see the picks that I just put on screen, but Seth did an interesting thing here by getting Derek Stingley Jr. at the 20th overall pick. Now, some of you are going to say that is flat out impossible, Chris. That is cheating. The draft simulator that worked for him was broken. Listen, I get it. I don't get Derek Stingley to fall too often to me in any of these simulators either. However, part of that is because he's been injured, and since his blow-up season when LSU won the national title, he hasn't been able to put together the full year of superstardom but he still has that pedigree to be that guy. So teams might pass on him. I still think that there's a good chance that of the top 3 cornerbacks, Derek Stingley Jr., Ahmad Sauce Gardner, and Andrew Booth Jr., between the 3 of them, I think that there could be one that falls to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Steelers they never get the chance to draft elite cornerbacks that everyone agrees, oh, yeah, that guy is going to be really good. Because there's guys that, of course, you could say, well, they didn't draft Xavier Howard. Well, if everyone thought Xavier Howard was going to be a superstar corner in the NFL, they would have picked him in the first round. He would have gone top 5. But that's just not how that worked. But I'm talking about these are 3 guys that everyone looks at and says these guys could be really good in the NFL. So getting Derek Stingley Jr., Seth Rush was a good move if you can get it, because I truly think you get him, that's CB1 for the next 8 to 10 years. You're not terrified of any wide receiver that lines up against you. Akella Witherspoon, he could come in and initially be cornerback 2, but eventually you want him to take over cornerback 1. Witherspoon goes to 2. Levi Wallace is your first backup. Cam Sutton's in the slot, and you are living good at the cornerback position. So that's why I like that pick. But then your second pick was Jahan Dotson. Just like I said, athletic, speedy, good hands. I think it'd be a great fit for what the Steelers need. He's a guy that could become wide receiver 1, definitely will be used right away, and could be a long-term answer for for the Steelers at the wide receiver position. And hey, Mitch Trubisky has a pretty good record throwing to former Penn State wide receivers and Allen Robinson, right? So there's that too. Now, interesting picks here in the 3rd and 4th round, but these were the ones that kind of sealed it for me, Seth, with you. You got offensive tackle Abraham Lucas out of Washington State. I like this pick because he has the athleticism, he has the build, he's huge, he shows good footwork, and he shows the propensity to be a physical offensive tackle. Now, here's the thing. You've heard that phrase before. You've heard me talk about this. Wait a second, Chris. Is this another Chukwuma Okorafor? Maybe. It possibly is. But he'd be another young athlete you could put at the offensive tackle position, add to depth, and say, hey, your job is to either push Dan Moore Jr., although I believe this guy is more of a right tackle anyways. But then that way, if Chukwuma Okorafor doesn't work out, you have another young guy that you're waiting in the wings and say, how is this guy doing? So I think that offensive tackle is a smart position in that 3rd round. In the 4th round with your comp pick, you got Leo Chenal, linebacker out of Wisconsin. I don't think that Leo's going to be around this long because I really like him. I love his tape. However, if he is, more power to you. And I know that the Steelers just got Myles Jack, but I've said this before. Both Myles Jack and Devin Bush are similar in their styles of being linebackers. They're faster. They're not as much of the engage the fullback in the hole and disengage them and then make the tackle themselves. They're more of the fly sideline to sideline, use their speed and athleticism, contend with guys over the middle in the passing game, help with those parts of the game, and use their overall burst and athleticism to become game changers. Leo Chenal is more of that run stuffer type, and he's going to be that physical type of guy, and that could be the guy that you come in, give one of these guys a breather, be the guy that complements the other one. And this way also, like I've said before, with the way that Myles Jack's contract looks, it's an either or situation or both. If Devin Bush stinks, you let him go, and keep Myles Jack and pay him to be there for the future because he's only 26 years old. He'll be around for several years to come. And then if you have Leo Chenal, you have your number 2 next to him, hopefully thinking that he panned out. However, say Devin Bush does great and Myles Jack is the one that needs to go. Well, you have on a deal that doesn't crush you in the 2nd year, so you can find a way to make that work and Chenal becomes that guy. Or say both of them need to be scrapped because they both just had a bad season. I don't think that's going to happen, but say that needs to be happening. Leo Chenal can still be part of the solution moving forward. So I like the pick there, Seth. Bubba Bolden, safety out of Miami with your 6th round pick, 6'3" guy. Interesting prospect, free safety type of guy. I think that he could be kind of interesting there. And then for your 7th round picks, you got edge rusher Christopher Allen out of Alabama. The Steelers do love to pick some Alabama dudes in the 7th round. 7th and 6th round. Shout out to Joshua Frazier and Isaiah Buggs. And of course, with your last 7th round pick, running back Ty Chandler out of North Carolina. The Steelers do need to get another running back behind Najee Harris that isn't Benny Snell. Benny Snell's kind of had as many opportunities as he can have. He's going to have one more opportunity this year, but they need to give him someone who's going to press him and say, hey, if this ain't your year to turn things around, the team's going to be ready to find that person who's going to turn things around at the backup running back spot. So all that being said, congratulations again to Seth. Did a great job with your picks here. I enjoyed reading them. I enjoyed looking over them and saying, what could this do? How could this fit? But hey, thanks to everyone who came out and supported with your Mock Draft Monday submissions on the Locked On Steelers Facebook group. If you're not in that group, go to Facebook, search Locked On Steelers, ask to join the page. I'll add you as soon as possible. But every Friday / through the weekend, we post our Mock Draft Monday post where you can post a screenshot of your draft picks and then look at and say, hey, these are the picks that I made. This is what I did. Explain your reasoning. And if your reasoning matches up with things I'm going to be talking about in the show, then you might be able to get a shout out like Seth did. So thanks again to Seth. Thanks again to everyone who participated. It was really cool to read through some of them. We had some really good ones this week too that I was like, I want to go that one. I want to go that one. But some of them were also really close to the mines recently. So I was like, let's switch it up a little bit and get some diversity in there. But thank you, Seth, for your contributions. And thank you everyone for tuning into the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. If you want to get more of this podcast, you can follow us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. Like this video if you saw it on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for all of our daily content, Monday through Friday, and sometimes with our bonus episodes. If you want to help us out even further, go on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review, give us a positive comment, and when you do both at the same time, you get a special shout out at the end of the show. So when we do that, we do like to give our shout outs here on the Locked On Steelers podcast because there are plenty of you out there who do give us shout outs and we really appreciate y'all. Today's 5-star review comes from Pointless Pringle from Canada, a 5-star review for them, who says draft ? 5-star review. And I do apologize. Apparently I made Pointless a little unhappy with this. He says, I left a 5-star review before that I'm pretty sure you never read. You want to go, bud? I was like, first of all, I'm not your buddy guy. But second of all, but in all seriousness, he says, I want to ask, now that the Steelers have done a good job building some weaknesses through the free agency, would it make sense for them to draft Olave at 20 if he was around, or should they continue focusing on other positions more? Love the show and love you, Chris. Really glad a show like this could exist. Thank you, Pringle, for your 5-star review. And hey, I'll answer your question. If Olave is there, I certainly would consider it. Again, best player available is the Steelers board right now. I would not pick him over one of the top 3 cornerbacks. I would not pick him over Jordan Davis. If everyone else, those guys are gone, I would really consider Olave because I love his talent. I think he flies down the field and he would be a game changer at wide receiver. But like I said, defense, I think that should be their focus in the first round. They could also consider trading back and getting multiple picks like I did there. So thank you, Pointless Pringle, for your 5-star review. We got more 5-star reviews to read throughout the week. We will get to them on this show. Thanks again for tuning into the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stay tuned. We got more coming at you all week long, and maybe we'll have some updates on new Steelers free agent signings.